Hello, I'm Dennis Jerz. Welcome to American Literature 1776 to the present. I hope you're having a better day than I am. I just finished recording this whole lecture, and as I was uploading it shortly before midnight, I noticed that the sound was completely blank. So, starting over again from scratch, hey, these things happen in the 21st century. I've been at Seton Hill since 2003, and I teach courses in writing and literature and journalism and media. Last spring, I taught a course on AI and the future of literacy. I love teaching any literature class because I get to revisit works that I might have loved since I was a student or even since I was a child. And each time I read a familiar work, I find something new because I'm a different person. And each time I read a brand new work, I find something familiar because the more you read literature, the more you realize that literature reuses patterns. They're more like what you'd call guidelines than actual rules. We call these patterns conventions. For example, literary works that refer to other literary works, like I just did when I quoted a line from the Pirates of the Caribbean, that's one of the conventions. Academic writing at the college level follows certain conventions, and with practice and guidance, you can learn the difference between the kind of writing you might have been praised for in high school and the kind of writing I'll be asking you to do in this class. Now, this is not a creative writing class, so we'll be focusing on reading and interpreting what other people wrote, and we'll write about those literary works. Sometimes an untrained reader will try to judge whatever new things they read according to the conventions that they're already familiar with, and that's totally understandable. But we call a good novel good because it follows a certain set of conventions common to good novels. And a good novel will look and read and function and feel very different from a good social media post. With practice and with guidance, this class is designed to make you a better reader. With practice, you'll be able to recognize when a really good writer does something brand new within established conventions, or when a writer breaks from those conventions in surprising ways. These are the kinds of things that I hope that we'll be able to talk about as this class progresses. We're not here to learn facts to memorize so you can spit them back on a quiz. I'm not going to ask you what happened in Chapter 4 on a pop quiz, or what the green light symbolizes in The Great Gatsby, or why the curtains were blue. We will be studying how great writers have used language and storytelling in order to generate empathy, teaching us what it's like to live in someone else's world and feel what they're feeling, even if that world is strange to us and that character's values are not aligned with ours, and they're not from the world that we'd prefer to live in. An important point that I'll be making in this class is, okay, we'll be reading stories about human topics like compassion and grief, intolerance, identity. But let's say you read a poem about love. I won't be asking you to write a paper about love. I'll be asking you to write about how this particular poet represents, through poetic word choices and structure and juxtaposition and all these other things that poems can do, how the poet makes a point about love that they could only make through this poem. You can write a paper about how this particular poet uses words in this particular poem to make this particular point about love. Let's switch to another example. If I ask you to read a poem about a tree, a botanist is not going to expect you to be able to settle arguments based on the contents of a poem about trees. Well, what exactly does all that mean? Let's talk a little bit about that. So, oh yeah, first I should point out, yeah, I should have said this earlier. Uh, if you are adding to this class late and you're panicking because you've looked ahead in Canvas and you see some deadlines have already passed, just get the work in as soon as you can. Just catch up. In addition to writing and forum posts, there'll be a couple podcast media projects because I'll want to be able to hear your voice and maybe see your faces. And that's an important part of building community in a classroom, as I'm sure you all knew during the lockdown years. There will be low-risk assignments when we get started, and those low-risk assignments are designed to get you ready for the next assignment. Okay, so now I want to talk about how in this class we're studying literary representations of the things that poets write about. And so let's imagine that you're looking at this piece of art. Vincent van Gogh painted this picture of a magnolia tree. You can see it's got these distinct edges, and within the edges there are these swirls that maybe represent, I don't know, the motion of leaves in the wind. But it's recognizably a magnolia tree. It doesn't look like a fir tree. It's not a birch tree. But however we interpret this painting, we're not going to use this painting to make an argument that will settle disagreements about real trees. We'll look at how this piece of art accomplishes things no real tree can do. Let's jump to poetry, which is what this class is all about and what I really want to talk about. This poem, Trees, by Joyce Kilmer. Every time I read this poem, I hear it in my mother's voice because my mother taught this one to me when I was young. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree. Goes on to say, poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. If you want to know facts about real trees, there's not much we can learn about real-world trees from Joyce Kilmer's poetic choices that we see in this poem. Well, what's the point, then, of reading a poem if it doesn't give you facts? Okay, well, would it matter to you if I told you that Joyce Kilmer, who wrote this poem, was a World War I soldier who was killed by a sniper in France? Here's a picture of Joyce Kilmer. The name Joyce, like Leslie and Ashley, started out as being an exclusively male name, and over the last couple centuries or so, these names have shifted to being exclusively female. But Joyce Kilmer volunteered to fight in World War I, and he also volunteered to be sent to the front lines, where he was killed by a sniper. His poetry, sure, it's about trees. It explores the beauty of nature, but he also wrote about war, and he wrote about faith within the framework of his very Catholic identity. There's so many things we can talk about. We can talk about how his work fits into 20th century portrayals of masculinity. He wrote about heroism and bravado and sacrifice, but he also wrote about faith, and he wrote about tenderness. He wrote about sacrifice and men's intimate relationships during crises. Comparing the tree in this poem to a real tree doesn't even scratch the surface of what we can get out of this poem when we study it using the techniques that I'll be teaching you in this class. Okay, so Canvas, certainly if you've taken any classes at Seton Hill, you know what Canvas is, and you know that Canvas is our control post. You might not know about this tab. If you click here on the calendar button, it takes you to a view that shows you what assignments are due. And if you're looking and you see, okay, there are 4 assignments due every day, I just want to remind you that we are covering a full 4 months worth of material in 3 weeks. So, basically for each weekday, we're handling a full week's worth of material that we'd cover in a semester-long course. So if you look at the work that's due, again, these deadlines are due midnight on the 18th. Honestly, if you don't get to them until sometime during the 19th, I'm going to be forgiving for this first day of assignments, and they're pretty basic. But I did want you just to draw your attention to the fact that if we were meeting in person, we would have 2.5 hours per week in which I could teach you and ask you to do things. And I could throw ideas at you, and I could walk around the room and listen to you talk to each other. And in a small class like this, I could speak to each one of you, and I would get to know whether you knew this material or not. In this online class, the only way I can learn what you can do is by giving you assignments that you submit in Canvas. So if we imagine that instead of a 3-week compressed January class, and we take a week off for Christmas, but it's still three weeks basically of in-session times, let's imagine that instead this was a Tuesday-Thursday class. Well, this first assignment might represent the homework that's due before the first day of classes. Or no, homework before the first day of classes. Forget that. Let's say this homework due before a typical Tuesday class. The second assignment is the work that we would do during class on Tuesday. Likewise, this is the homework due before class Thursday, and this is what we do during class Thursday. So when you think of it, these 4 assignments, it's the only way that I can assess the work that we would do, that we would split between in-person work and homework. It all has to be homework in a class like this, and here it all is. Okay, I do have a course policy that gives people a limited number of extensions. I once had a student complain, Jerz gives homework on Christmas Eve. I don't give homework on Christmas Eve, but yeah, if you give yourself an extension on work that's due on the 23rd, sure, you might find yourself doing homework on the Christmas Eve, but it was you who gave yourself homework on that day. And that's perfectly fine if you want to use that extension. Anyway, the syllabus does describe my policy for late passes, and I will refer you to that. Okay, I want to comment just a little bit about online learning in general. And online learning has benefits. There's no set meeting time, but in this class, I'm giving regular deadlines. I think the way to succeed in this class is to set aside time every day to do it. I'm treating this as my full-time job for the 3 weeks that this is in session. Again, I'm taking a break during the Christmas holiday, and I hope you will as well. There's no homework that's due during that. And I'm trying not to have a big assignment that's due when you come back. But anyway, online discussions are just absolutely crucial to the way this class functions. As I record this video, all the assignment due dates and the details for all the major classes assignments are in Canvas, and the first week is all very much fleshed out with all the details. I look forward to seeing those assignments starting to come in so I can get to know you and your work. The syllabus contains information on how to contact me and what to do if you miss a deadline, what the course goals are, what my goals are in academic integrity, including artificial intelligence, which is actually simulated intelligence, and it is basically, soulless gray drivel that's spewed out by an algorithm that does not represent the kind of human thoughts and personal engagement that I'm hoping to reward in this class. When I ask my students who are about to graduate from my class what message they'd leave for future students, they say things like, put your best efforts into all the assignments and stay on track. The small assignments are not busy work. They really do help prepare you for the major assignments. They also say things like, don't be afraid to ask the instructor for help. Built into this class are 3 one-on-one consultations. You're welcome to speak to me on other occasions, but there's a midterm consultation and a right before you write your term paper draft, and then after I've read your term paper draft and I'm giving you feedback. Anyway, so there are 3 required consultations, and you'll see them pop up on Canvas at the proper time. Before I leave, I just want to say sometimes students say things like this. A student who said, I stumbled upon a letter of recommendation that you wrote to me back in 2006, and I wanted to send you a quick thank you. Upon entering your classroom all those years ago, I was very intimidated. Upon leaving, I was inspired. Reading your kind words about me all these years later means so very much. Another student sent this message. Thank you for teaching me this semester and for all the previous semesters that I never thanked you for. It took me a long time to understand your approach to teaching, but I'm grateful for every class I took with you. Thank you for encouraging and challenging me. So, I don't promise that you're going to, have going to reach out to me years from now and tell me I changed your life, but it's happened. Certainly, I have fond memories of many students whose work okay, now little thing's going away. Okay, I have fond memories of many students whose work has changed me and inspired me, and this class is an opportunity for many great things to happen, and I look forward to what our compressed 3 weeks together will bring. I look forward to hearing from you. Happy reading as together we explore American literature from 1776 to the present.